All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the West Wind Report. Today is Wednesday, March 26th, and we are coming at you live from beautiful, beautiful British Columbia. I just want to throw a quick disclaimer before this episode. I reviewed the tapes of last episode, and I realized there's a lot of things I need to improve on. I still think my message is there, and we're still going to follow this campaign along, this election cycle along, and try to cover the best we can. I just want these videos to be a lot more concise and a lot more focused, so that's what I'm going to try to improve on. Now, with that being said, we're still going to go through things that happened today, and then at the end of the video, I'm going to assign who won the day. Right now, the Conservatives are leading the Liberals 2-0, 2-0. But campaigns are long, and things change, opinions change. You know, people sometimes don't even make their minds up until the day of voting. So without further ado, let's just hop into it. There have been a couple of little clips and snippets that have come out today from both Mr. Carney and Mr. Poilievre, so we're just going to take a look at those. So we're going to look at a whole range of things. Firstly, the Conservatives coming out and trying to swoon some share of the boomer voting demographic away from the Liberals. We also had Pierre Poilievre exposing Carney taking advantage of tax havens while he was vice chair for Brooksfield. And he also brings up again the $250 million loan that Carney took out with China, essentially, demonstrating that maybe there are a couple conflicts of interest from this international banker or this international investor that Mark Carney is. Maybe these investments, and these conflicts of interest kind of make it look like he maybe doesn't have Canadians' best interests in mind, but rather his shareholders. And we have Carney responding to these allegations. We also have Mr. Singh from the NDP, throwing in some shade for whatever reason. I always thought that the NDP and the Liberals were supposed to be on the same team. It's just, makes you think. And also I want to look at Carney having a couple more run-ins with reporters, getting a little snippy with them, as it looks like he is prone to do. And as this election cycle continues, the more that people see this, I think the more unlikable Carney comes for the Liberal Party. And with that being said, I also wanted to end this video with kind of explaining why I think a Conservative majority is shaping up to be extremely likely, despite what the polls are saying, despite what CBC is saying, despite what CTV is saying. There's been some news that's dropped today that is definitely good news for the Conservatives. So we're going to take a look at that, and I'm just going to break that down, and then you feel free to agree with me or not. I'd love to hear anyone else's opinion on this. But the way things are shaping up, it looks like the Conservatives are just throwing all of this stuff out at the Liberal Party, and the Liberal Party is just, on the defense. And that's not a really good position, especially when these allegations that are coming out are pretty damning from the Conservative Party. So without further ado, the first clip we're going to look at is Mark Carney showing up to an auto plant in Windsor, Ontario this morning, and you can kind of see the reaction to having the Prime Minister showing up to this lowly auto factory. So we're going to check this out.
Can everyone hear me? Hopefully not. If you're lucky, you can't hear me. If you're unfortunate, you're close, you can hear me.
Well, that resonates with everyone who's ever attended a Mark Carney rally.
Mark Carney, Prime Minister.
In case you guys don't believe me, Prime Minister. I know a lot of you don't.
You got Chris Sutton, who is a former millwright who's running for MP in Essex. So if you're in Essex or know anyone in Essex and you want someone in Parliament who actually knows what he's doing.
I'm sorry, where's this guy from again? Is it Essex?
The guy. He's our guy. And Eric Kuzmarek, who is the MP here in Windsor. And nobody knows more in politics about the auto industry than Eric.
Nobody. And also, I'd like to note, They couldn't even do the courtesy of turning off whatever machinery's going on. They didn't even shut down the plant for this guy. No way. Not in a liberal economy. Not for this factory.
Union auto industry than Eric. Look, I'll just say a couple of things. First, thank you for, sorry to interrupt, but thanks to the team here for taking me around, showing us what you do. It's hugely impressive. And we all know that we're facing a big challenge, right, with Trump and the tariffs and everything. And I just want to say what we're doing about it to make sure that we come out on top. And I'm going to say some specifics.
So, do these people look inspired by any of this? She definitely doesn't look worried about these tariffs and what they're going to do to her job. He also looks very confident. Look at him standing there. He looks very happy to see you, Mr. Carney. Right? She's just like, what is this guy doing here? This is the guy who's going to be fighting for our jobs with these tariffs coming through for Trump. This is the guy taking on Trump? I don't think so. It's safe to say I don't think a lot of people, unfortunately, are going to vote for Mark Carney who work in this plant. But that's just an eye test. I don't know. Hey. So that was Mark Carney's warm reception to the automobile plant. And while that was happening this morning, the Conservatives were dropping this announcement and lower taxes for seniors, essentially. With this new policy proposal, it's going to allow working seniors to earn up to $34,000 tax-free, allowing seniors the option of keeping savings growing in RRSPs until age 73, up from 71, protect OAS, GIS, and CPP by keeping retirement age at 65. Wait, I thought the Liberal talking point was that he was going to increase the retirement age to 67, but he's keeping it at 65? Are we sure about this? Is this the same Conservative government that the CBC has been telling me about? But anyways, they dropped this commercial ad, whatever you want to call it, and we're just going to take a look at it, and then we're going to break a couple things down.
Imagine this. You worked hard for 40 years, built a life, raised a family. You're ready to step away from the full-time grind, and you've earned it. But that doesn't mean you're ready to hang up the skates entirely. You're in good shape. You want to contribute. You want to mentor young workers, lend your knowledge to a local business, or maybe just work part-time to structure the days and provide a nice little bit of extra income. But there's a problem. Every dollar you earn comes at a cost. Right now.
So he goes on to talk about, I don't know, whatever boomer stuff. But I think this advertisement, or this commercial, whatever you want to call it, does a really good job at appealing to the boomers. You know, it's fun. It's got the groovy music.
Imagine this. You worked hard for 40 years, built a life, raised a family. You're ready to step away.
Even like Poilievre's voice in it is kind of like, 70s, 80s, cheesiness, corniness, right?
From the full-time grind, and you've earned it.
And you've earned it, like that kind of old advertisement that was taking place back in the day when a lot of these older potential voters were younger folks, and it's using old footage. Like it looks like it's like filmed on a VHS tape, right? Like this is footage pulled from the CBC in the 70s. And I don't know, I don't have cable, but I'm assuming that the Conservatives are just blasting this over the airwaves of cable TV, because all the boomers are just watching CBC, they're watching cable news, they're watching all of those legacy media outlets. So it seems like the Conservatives, not only with announcing all these benefits to the seniors, they're also trying to advertise for them a bit more aggressively. Because we all know that the Liberal Party and the NDP Party is being held up by the older generation voters. I don't know what it is. It's this boomer complex, but for some reason they don't want to see the future generations prosper. And I'm not talking about all the boomers, because I know that there are a lot of older people who have had to go back to work, have had to take jobs just to survive, right? And, they're living alone. They could be widows, right? Like no kids to help them out, that kind of thing. So I think this is a really, really well done ad by the Conservative PR team, because I think you have I think you can carve out a big block of that older voter, you know, the 59 plus crowd, if you're the conservative, because a lot of them are struggling, just like younger folk. But moving along here, we've got Pierre Poilievre coming out and talking about how Mark Carney and his, you know, while he was the vice chair, he invested big sums of money into tax havens, you know, like Bermuda, so he didn't have to pay Canadian taxes on his returns, essentially. So if the Liberals want to talk about security clearance this and trying to smear Pierre Poilievre's credibility and making him seem like he's like a foreign asset or something like that, or that the party is, you know, being interfered with by foreign regimes, I don't think that the Liberals want to play this game, because this is day 3 or whatever, and they're just dropping stuff like this where Pierre Poilievre, he's articulating it very well, he's explaining it very well, and it's a blatant conflict of interest, and it raises a lot of eyebrows. So we're just going to take a look at this and see what he has to say. Here's the allegations, essentially.
Now, we also know that Mark Carney has been hiding his assets in foreign tax havens. Just today, we learned that his company, under his watch, put money in Bermuda to avoid paying Canadian taxes. All while
the damn Canadian taxes are too high for Mark Carney, so he invested in offshore accounts. Why were those taxes too high? Because of the Liberal government. And who is an economic advisor and a special advisor to the Liberal government? Mark Carney. So while he was screwing over Canadians by implementing these ridiculous taxes, this carbon tax, the consumer tax, all these tax hikes, these capital gain tax hikes, all this BS that was making it harder to live for Canadians, he was investing in offshore accounts. So he didn't have to pay those taxes. So the Liberal Party, when they want to champion being, you know, the party of the people, you know, against billionaires, right? Pierre Poilievre, he has billionaires, you know, he's a billionaire interests, right, from his donors, his donor class. The Liberal Party is no longer a party of the people.
While Liberals force Canadians to pay higher taxes, Mark Carney dodges the bill himself. He thinks millionaires like him shouldn't have to pay, even while single moms, seniors, and small businesses are forced to fork over ever more money to this
exactly
out-of-control, greedy Liberal government. Mark Carney is out of touch. In his mind, taxes are for the little people, not the millionaires and billionaires like him. Carney needs to come clean about his offshore dealings and how much of his assets are still hidden in tax havens. You know, Canadians deserve to know what financial interests a prime minister has. Here's the problem with Mark Carney. He's outsourced jobs, he's offshored his taxes, he's the most conflicted and compromised prime minister in our country's history.
Like, this is the Conservatives on the attack, right? And I'm pretty sure I saw something that the Conservatives like doubled the donations of the Liberals. So this is just going to keep on, they're just going to keep on attacking the Liberals, and the Liberals are going to constantly have to defend, deflect, and Carney's going to have to be out there, and the reporters are putting his feet to the fire.
I'm running for Canada because I'm running for Prime Minister because I want to put Canada first. But you can't do that when all your interests are locked up in foreign interests. For example, how would he ever crack down on tax evasion, on offshore tax havens, when he's got his money wrapped up in those same havens? How would he ever crack down on the abuses by China of our steel industry, when his company owes $250 million to the Chinese government's state-owned banks? How would he ever protect Canada against the U.S. when he's already moved his company headquarters to Donald Trump's hometown and the jobs and money with it?
Like, this is making a lot of sense. Like, if you look at it pragmatically, without any sort of political bias, what he is saying is making a lot of sense. And I think the Conservatives' messaging is starting to tighten up, right? They're putting all these conflicts of interest out, like he's always going to be compromised. Carney's never going to have the best interest of Canadians in mind. And I think that's a successful strategy because when you break it down like this at the bare bones, it really, really looks like Carney's got a lot of skeletons in these closets. So those are the allegations, right? He's benefited from tax havens. He still has, people are saying it's a sweetheart deal that he does with China. So, hey, China's going to give us this loan, but, you're going to do something for me later, hush, hush, wink, wink, that kind of thing. So those are the allegations, right? We all heard what Pierre Poilievre had to say about it. So then let's see the response from Mr. Mark Carney.
Could I just follow up on that? Could you explain in the case of those Brookfield funds, what was the argument for registering the funds in Bermuda? Is it ethical to do that? And is it something as Prime Minister that you'd have to crack down on? I'm not sure if it's a problem, but is that something that you'd have to crack down on?
I think the important.
Okay, first off, did you just hear the way the journalist phrased that question?
Something that you'd have to crack down on. Have to crack down on. I'm not sure if it's a problem. And is it something as Prime Minister that you'd have to crack down on? I'm not sure if it's a problem, but is that something?
It's something you have to crack down on. I'm not sure if that's a problem. Please, Prime Minister. This guy must work for the CBC or something like that. Please, I just want to keep my job. My bosses are making me ask this question. The guy's voice is shaking. Come on now. Have a spine.
Something that you'd have to crack down on.
I think the important thing, Tom, is that the flow through of the funds.
You addressed him with Tom. You addressed him as Tom. He's definitely some CBC reporter.
Go to Canadian entities who then pay the taxes appropriately, as opposed to taxes being paid multiple times before they get there. So that's how we have the structure. That's the structure that.
Yeah, you're just describing taking advantage of tax haven, tax haven countries and manipulating. You're just explaining it. This is what's wrong with it.
All of our pension funds, par exemple, the Caisse de dépôt or Ontario Teachers.
Spontaneous French.
Or OMERS, municipal employees, or all the big pension funds in Canada, which are very successful, which protect union workers in many cases. I'm speaking of union workers today, and supply to them. It's those entities and their employees who are covered. So the structures work for that effect.
So, he's talking about pensions and all this stuff. This guy is an international banker man. He is an international investor. He's not a leader of man. It's just the pension funds, this investment that he's getting from all these people, all this dirty money wrapped up, intertwined, it's a big incestuous blob. He's just changing numbers on a spreadsheet. That's what he's doing. And it's so disingenuous, and I think people are starting to realize that. And also the question was not, can you please explain to us how to avoid taxes, Canadian taxes? The question was, do you think that's a conflict of interest? Is there anything ethical or is there anything ethically wrong about that? The Prime Minister investing and doing this crap. That was the question. And then to continue on, this is his response to the $250 million loan from a Chinese state-owned bank shortly after he, as Brookfield executive, held a secret meeting with a top Chinese official. Come on now. There's too much detail in these quote-unquote allegations from the Conservative Party to not have at least a little iota of truth.
The first question's about these issues that Mr. Poilievre raised yesterday. He's suggesting you're beholden to China. He talked about your...
What an imbecile.
Regular visits to China. You went there at the time when Xi was trying to show the world that he's open for business. You went back in the fall. Then Brookfield secured a $276 million loan for some property there, I guess that was underwater. Was that a sweetheart loan? Are you beholden to China?
Absolutely.
See, that's a great question from the reporter. He breaks it all down. He's like, yo, you went there when he announced that he was open for business, and then you went back. See, that's a great question, and there are a lot of journalists out there who are asking Mr. Carney questions like this in this kind of manner, and he tries to sidestep the best he can, but he is just not charismatic enough to do it.
Not. First thing. Second thing I'll say, look, Mr. Poilievre doesn't understand the world. Mr. Poilievre is a lifelong politician. It's all he's ever done. These slogans, sound bites, slander, doesn't understand how the world works. China happens
Yeah, he's an idiot. Let me explain to you how the world works.
to be our second largest trading partner. It's our second largest trading partner. We have trade disputes with China right now.
Once again, that's not the question. What about the conflict of interest? And also, this is another liberal talking point with Pierre Poilievre being a career politician, and it's like, yeah, he's been in politics, 20 years? So yeah, he is a career politician. Also, when you're part of a government body, what do? You dictate and facilitate, in a sense, how the world works. So I think Pierre Poilievre understands how the world works.
Caused by them in the agriculture sector. It's one of the areas which we need to engage on. It's one of the
So why are we not engaging on it?
areas when you think about, again, the auto.
He's just like waving his hands and pointing in different directions. He's like, look at all these, I don't know. Ask someone else a question.
sector and the future of the auto sector. We've got to understand where China is, where China is going, whether or not there's any room for partnership.
Okay, so the reason you took out the $250 million loan, and this isn't a sweetheart deal, because you're just keeping an eye on China. Yeah, right. I'm sure you are. And now here we have, Mr. Singh weighing in on this and, throwing in his 2 cents. Because, hey, the NDP and Liberals, they're supposed to be buddy-buddy. This guy propped up the Trudeau government for the last 2 years. Wouldn't call a non-confidence vote because, who knows, maybe he wanted his pension. I don't know. That would make sense. I can't imagine that he's so sadistic that he would want to just keep on screwing over the Canadian people for no payoff. You can only hope that it was worth it. But, they're supposed to be friends. They're supposed to be pals, right? So let's just see what he has to say and, take it with a grain of salt.
We learned recently that Mark Carney was personally responsible for 2 funds. He's the chair of Brookfield Investments, but he's personally responsible for 2 funds totaling $25 billion. And while he was chair, he chose to register those 2 funds, even though they're Canadian, he chose to register them in Bermuda for the sole reason of avoiding paying taxes.
Yeah, and, even Jagmeet Singh, he even gets it.
Right now it's tax season. Hardworking Canadians
Oh, fuck, don't remind me, man.
are paying their taxes. They can't choose to register in Bermuda to avoid paying taxes. They got to pay them here. And they do that because they believe that we contribute to our healthcare system. We contributed to taking care of each other. When we pay our taxes, we're paying into a program that lifts each other up. Well, Mark Carney was not just the chair of this entire company, but personally responsible for these 2 funds. He chose to register in another country to avoid paying those taxes. That's less money for healthcare, less money for seniors. That's less investments in our country. And so now, just a couple months later, he wants to be prime minister. A couple months ago, he was avoiding paying taxes in our country, and now he wants to be prime minister.
Yeah, I mean, even Jagmeet Singh is explaining it and breaking it down in a way that makes sense. Yeah, everybody seems to be on the same page of this. This is not good. This is not what you want from your prime minister, and this isn't what you want from your prime minister candidate. And this is from a rally later in the day, I believe. It was at night or something like that. And this is Mark Carney, he wants to play dirty, I guess. The gloves are coming off.
So in 9 days between when I was sworn in and when the Governor General accepted to call the election.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the very technical breakdown. He always breaks down things so technically, right? Like you saw it in the earlier clip where he's introducing these people at the auto plant, right? Like this guy's from Essex. if you're from Essex, or if you know anyone from Essex, Essex is where we vote for the MP for Essex. So vote for this guy for Essex. You know, he always breaks it down. It's just so boring.
Those 9 days, we did more than Pierre Poilievre has imagined in all of his decades in politics.
Man, what's been done? Like, nothing's been passed. You've just tried to sign an executive order like Donald Trump and take your picture with it. And it was ending the consumer carbon tax, which you implemented.
And that, in fairness, that's a low bar. Because it's not clear he has an imagination.
It's clear he doesn't have an imagination. All right, well, this is how we're gonna play it, Carney. All right, fair enough. No imagination, even though you took his ideas with the no GST on purchases of new homes. You took his idea on cutting the carbon tax that you introduced, and you didn't even slash it. You didn't even eliminate it. You just put the consumer carbon tax amount to zero, so that the companies are just going to raise the prices. We're going to feel it anyways, whatever. And then you also came out against capital gains tax, which has been a conservative talking point since the Liberal government was the one who introduced it and was going to introduce a hike in it. So no imagination. I mean, and the thing about the thing that people always say about Mark Carney is he fights fair. He's above the belt. He'll never stoop this low. Right? Pierre Poilievre is just attacking and being mean and vicious. It's like, well, yeah, here's your guy. And furthermore on that, there was this situation that he had with a French reporter who was asking him about, are you going to give Donald Trump a call? He just enforced these tariffs. That's going to just completely kill our automobile industry. So let's see this and let's break it down.
Okay.
So my French isn't very good. I have like a second grader's level of French. But I believe what she's asking is, tu parles français avec du Donald Trump? So she's asking, like, are you going to talk to Donald Trump about these goddamn tariffs? Oui, yes.
Pour la deuxième partie, oui.
Pour la deuxième partie, I believe that means like for the second time, yes. So he's already getting agitated. And keep in mind, I don't speak French.
Vous allez l'appeler? Oui, on verra.
That's enough for you. Just, take that answer. Oui, yeah, and get out of here.
Demain. Ok, tôt. Ça suffit, hein. Mais...
Ooh. Ça suffit. So, ça suffit is like essentially what a parent would say to their child if they're misbehaving. It's like, enough. Stop that. Stop behaving like that. You can hear it by the way it's said, right? Like, French is a very phonetic language. Phonetic. What a word. Wow. But French is a phonetic language, so you can hear when it's ça suffit, ça suffit, that's enough. Very, very disrespectful. And this guy is already on thin ice with French Canadians. He's not, he doesn't want to do the Quebec debate. His French isn't really good, apparently. I don't know. But the French are very, very proud people. And if you're going to talk down to him like this, I don't think that's going to bode well.
En ce qui concerne les options, nous avons des options, même pendant une...
So, yeah, I mean, he's just getting more snippy with reporters. We saw it yesterday, and it's still happening, and now he's trying to play dirty games with, smearing Pierre Poilievre, right? Getting personal attacks. And the Conservatives are just coming back with, let's see your books, release your books. And a lot of people talk about how, oh, well, it's in a blind trust. It's like, okay, you think Mark Carney, who is an international banker man, an international investor man, his whole existence, his whole personality, his whole persona is around money. You really think that A week before he declared his bid for the leadership race or whatever it was, he put all of his money into a blind trust. You think he's just giving it to some lackey and he doesn't know exactly where his money's going? Come on now. Come on. You cannot be that naive to think that this guy doesn't know exactly what he's investing in. No one's just going and selling off his whole portfolio and reinvesting it. But anyways, I'm not trying to get too fired up over the Liberals. I'm trying to remain nonpartisan, but the more I'm just watching Mark Carney, the more the smugness, he's a self-proclaimed elitist, globalist, European. So he doesn't care about Canadians, and it's starting to just show. It's starting to just show, right? The facade is fading, the man behind the curtain, all that stuff. But I want to talk about why I think actually the Conservatives have a very, very good chance about sweeping, having like a huge majority win. And I've talked about it a lot this episode of Mark Carney just being very, very snarky, not being well received, not being well liked. But there's a couple interesting things that have happened that we want to look at for the Conservatives. And the first is being they're getting a bunch of endorsements from unions because the NDP is polling horrendously. Like the NDP is at risk of not even being a viable political party after this election if they lose 6% or whatever, if they go under 6%. And that is very much in play for the NDP. And then everybody always says, oh, well, the NDP, they always split their votes with the Liberals, right? So, people who are detractors from the NDP usually go to the Liberal Party. But this year, this election cycle, I think it's completely different because the Conservatives are making major waves with union members and unions in general. So let's take a look at this.
Ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, I'm not Pierre, but he will be here shortly. My name's Nathan Bergstrand. I'm the business manager of United Association, Local 67, plumbers, pipe fitters, and steam fitters here in Hamilton.
Goddamn right. I love it. I love when they shout out the, 647, local pipe fitters. I love the union boys when they just get fired up like this. Like these are just working class people. All these people, these are just working class people. These are middle of the road Canadians who have just been kneecapped over the past 10 years by this Liberal government, and they are drastically wanting a change.
I appreciate that. I'm going to get right into my speech here and try to get through this and get Pierre on the stage. As trade unionists in the past, when the table wasn't set to our liking, we've closed our eyes and sat elsewhere. We cannot afford to do that anymore. We must be at the table with both eyes open.
So pretty much just saying how it's just been blind loyalty for these unions, right? Like they've always sided with the NDP or the Liberals because the NDP and the Liberals are always the ones that are trying to invest in social programming and social services and invest in unions, fees or whatever, protecting their jobs and stuff like that. And the Conservatives has always been the big boogeymans that are trying to slash and kill the unions. But everybody is getting killed by this government. I don't think that these polls do not make any sense because you see this stuff, right? And you look at Mark Carney and you're like, man, there's no way. There's no way people are falling for this. And people are that dumb to think that the Liberal government is going to be any different than what it's been like for the past 10 years. Because you know why? We have a 10-year sample size of what has happened. But anyways, Buddy here goes on to endorse Pierre Poilievre, pretty much says that the unions have been abandoned by the NDP and the Liberals, so now it's time for a drastic change. So this is what I'm saying with the NDPs, the detractors going over to the Liberals. I think a lot of those NDP detractors are going to go over to the Conservative side, and you never see these union guys come out and endorse Conservatives. It was a big deal when the unions were coming out and endorsing Donald Trump, and Donald Trump, he improved in all of his demographics, right? Because people needed radical change, right? It just took Canadians 10 years to get here, right? To get our heads out of the sand and look at this stuff. But one of the last pieces I want to look at is not only is Pierre Poilievre receiving endorsements from the union, He's also receiving endorsements from the anti-union lobby groups. You know, they're endorsing Pierre Poilievre's Conservatives. Right? Goes on to say, Merit Canada, which represents non-union employers in the construction sector, announced their endorsement of Pierre Poilievre. Two other provincial open shop organizations, the Independent Contractors and Business Associations of British Columbia and Alberta, endorsed Poilievre in January. So these guys, right? These associations, these are private contractors, you know, people who work in the private sector with construction. They're small business owners, medium business owners, entrepreneurs, those kinds of people who are usually lobby against giving money to unions because that cuts into their, you know, capitalistic free market viewpoints of what the economy should look like. But now they're coming out and endorsing Pierre Poilievre in droves. So, you know, and you know, the Liberals and the past Liberal government and NDP, for that matter as well, said they were going to invest in these local businesses and make it easier, but they made it worse. They made it worse for everyone. They made it harder for everyone. So with this, I think it's very, very, very likely that the Conservatives might just win a majority. You know, elections are long, or election cycles are long. So apart from like an insane bombshell piece from the Liberals or a planned attack against Poilievre, it really, really looks like the court of public opinion is going back into common sense. It's going back into normalcy. And it really seems like a lot of people want to change. And there's 800 reasons why. So with all that being looked at and all that being said, I'm going to give the win of the day to the Conservatives. So now they're leading 3-0 against the Liberals. You know, I think Carney is starting to come off extremely smug and extremely arrogant. And I think Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives are on the attack, which is pushing the Liberals on the defense. And the Liberals just don't have time to catch up. You know, they have to sell Carney to the people while they also have to rebut against all of these accusations coming from the Liberal Party. So we'll see how it goes, but Conservatives get the win for today. And thank you everyone who listened, and I hope to talk to you all again soon.